Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Isabella Del Monte, and I'm delighted to be here today representing the Bologna Children's Book Fair. To open this special roundtable, we had the honor and pleasure to organize in collaboration with the United Nations and the International Publishers Association. Sustainability has been identified as one of the most important concerns publishers have today. So how can we build a more sustainable and eco-friendly industry? How can we contribute to the sustainable development goals, the core agenda of the United Nations that clearly identifies young people as critical agents of change? So this discussion aims to highlight what role publishers and authors can play in creating inspiring and beautiful books for young readers, books that provide accessible and also accurate information on such critical topics such as climate change and caring for our planet. I also wish to invite you all to visit the beautiful exhibition that complements this roundtable. It is on display here at the end of Hall 30, so it's very close. And it features 70 outstanding children's books from all over the world, focused on environmental issues. A big thank you to Ed Navotka for accepting to chair this panel, and to our esteemed speakers for sharing their knowledge with us today. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great fair. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Edward Nowotska. I'm the Senior International and Bookselling Editor at Publishers Weekly, which is a trade magazine that's 152 years old from New York City. And we discuss books and publishing each and every week in a printed magazine. And the question of whether that's environmentally responsible is up to each and every one of you. So if you value it, it is responsible. And if you don't value it, it's irresponsible. And this is what we're going to talk about today. The responsibility that everybody in our publishing community has for inspiring the next and the youngest generation of readers to, again, take responsibility for Mother Earth. And I'd like to start just by having our esteemed panel that we've been able to gather here at the book fair introduce themselves so you can identify them as they speak and just their name and their job and what they do briefly.
Thank you, Ed. My name is Karini Pansa. I'm the president of the International Publishers Association.
Irina Lomelski, United Nations Publications.
Hello, I'm Inés Castelbranco, a publisher from Barcelona of Chiara Books.
Good afternoon, my name is Elisa Palazzi. I'm a scientist, I'm a climatologist here, but I'm also quite a lot involved in dissemination activities, and I'm an author of climate books, also addressed to young readers.
My name is Ferdinando Boero. I'm president of the Dorn Foundation of the Zoological Station of Naples. I am a zoologist, and I made a project of a museum in Naples dedicated especially to children to understand the issues of the environment, the ocean, and sustainability.
So I'm going to start, since this panel has been inspired in part by the UN Sustainability Development Goals. Maybe, Irina, can you tell us briefly about these goals and the project that the United Nations is engaged in educating and inspiring our youngest readers?
Thank you, Ed. So Sustainable Development Goals have been approved by the General Assembly in 2015. It's the 17 goals for the better planet and for better future for all. we are now in a decade of action. We're halfway through to 2030, and unfortunately, with the pandemic and also lots of other conflicts in the world, the progress has not been what we've been hoping for. So, as our DSG likes to say, you know, it's the second inning. So I'm unfortunately terrible at baseball. But in any case, you know, right now what we are doing is encouraging everyone to act. So the crucial importance is every small action counts. By everyone's action counts. Whether you're an individual, you're a nonprofit organization, you're a commercial entity, you're a publisher, you're an academic institution, everybody could do their part. And there's a lot of information that UN is disseminating on, you know, what actions you can do. And publishing community is joining in with the books on sustainability and then sustainable development goals. And also the books are encouraged to be on the action. So this is where we are right now. If anybody is interested in any additional information, I'm happy to provide it.
And Karini, the IPA, the International Publishers Association, has been heavily involved in promoting the SDGs. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that the IPA, as essentially publishing's equivalent of the UN, what you've been involved in, and how effective it's been so far?
Thank you, Ed. We have been working together with the UN for a long time now, promoting the SDGs, and one of the projects that we have done together is the SDG Book Club. That is a selection of titles all related to the SDGs, selected by a group of organizations like the IBBY, like the Federation of Libraries, as publishers associations locally, and we have selected titles that are connected to the 17 SDGs. And I was heavily involved in that with the Brazilian Book Chamber in Brazil, and one of the consequences of this list is that people are now able to identify very easily a list of 115 titles that have been specially selected with each one of the SDGs, and it's like a list for buying on how to start with your SDGs titles. So it is a very good start for each parent or each teacher that wants to select books. This can be a very good start. So it was a cooperation between IPA and the WEN Publishing.
When you say 115 titles, is that just in Brazil or, okay?
Yeah, out of 1,200 titles, we have selected 115 titles divided into the 17 categories.
And just to clarify, you are yourself a children's book publisher. So just briefly, before we go to Inez, what criteria as a publisher do you rely on to select the best books for this particular project?
Very good. As any other publisher, as any other book, when we try to define if this is a very good title for us to publish, first we count on the author, if he's a specialist or not. And it should be in this type of book especially, because they need to have all the background on what they're talking about. And even if they're talking about very simple things, because it's for children, but they need to know everything on the background of it. So the author, it would be like the first very good choice that we need to do. And then, of course, the illustrator needs to do a combined work together. And we need some specialists to do like other revisions and to see if all the content is correct.
So in essence, Inez, do you agree or disagree with this idea that the author need be an expert on a subject, and that the illustrator then certainly has to be able to express the expert author's opinion or point of view, or is this something that should come more naturally to us as creators?
Of course, I think it's very important that it should be a good author and a good illustrator. This is very important. But I think that for early ages, most important is to awake the sense of wonder. Because little children, no, when they are very young, they don't know how can they act, no? But they need to keep alive the sense of wonder. I want to read just a quote from Rachel Carson. It's a marine biologist, best known for The Silent Spring. And she has a little book that it's called The Sense of Wonder. I love this book. I don't know if you know it. And she says, if a child is to keep alive his inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscover with him the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in. So I think it's very important to share this excitement as adults and also in our books. And for little children, I think we should begin with this, no? For example, another biologist, Stephen Jay Gould, he says, we will not fight to save what we do not love. I just wanted to remark, no, that it's important first to know, to go outside, to experience nature, no? And so I think for early ages, they just need books about curiosities, about animals, because children have curiosity naturally, no? The children, they make questions, they want to know how does the world works, well, no, the animals, the plants. So I think we should start with this, and then when they are teenagers or before 7, 8 years old, we can also share examples of activists, of climate change, how can we do, but this comes later, I think.
Well, why don't you show us an example of a book that you
Yes.
handed me that
Yes.
generated its own kind of feeling of awe.
For example, we here in the Bologna book fair, they give us a special mention for this book is Thank You, Mother Earth. This is just a Thanksgiving address for native people, indigenous, North America, Iroquois. So this is, each morning they start the day saying thanks for all the element of nature, no? So we are here today and we want to say greetings and thanks to Mother Earth. And then for the animals, for the plants we eat, the fishes, all the animals, all the brother sun, the moon, the winds, no? And so it's something that we are giving thanks. First of all, we need to take care and to know what this world wonderful where we live in now. So we start with this is a very special book, and so to know sometimes how does native people live in their communities now, the biodiversity in their territories, that it's much bigger than in our cities now, and gens, okay, and for example, this for little children, but for example, for teenagers, for example, we have these inspiring speeches. For example, Jane Goodall, Wangari Maathai, that's a Nobel Prize from Kenya, that's put all the women in Kenya planting trees, no? Or Severn Suzuki in Rio de Janeiro in 22, she spoke during 5 minutes just to call the action on the adults. Why don't you do what you are saying? Also an indigenous speech. I think we can each age demands a different approach, but just to awake this sense of wonder.
And Elisa, as a scientist and an author, how do you combine the rigor of scientific research with the creativity of writing for children while sustaining that sense of wonder? Because there is a sense of discovery and research that ideally will generate a sense of wonder. And I'm curious, how do you think about this? How do you work in this manner?
Yes, I think that making environmental and climate change issues accessible and engaging for the young readers require this double approach. So a combination between the scientific content, the accuracy in the scientific content, a kind of creative storytelling. So on the one side, of course, we have to use an age-appropriate language. We have to break down complex ideas, complex concepts into simpler terms without oversimplification, without losing the accuracy of the scientific information that has to be conveyed. And this can be done using, for example, metaphors, using analogies, situation taken from the typical experiences of the real life of the children. And together with that, I think that telling personal stories can be important because they have the capacity to touch the emotions of the persons in general and of the children also, to, in a way, to inspire them to take action. So I think that empower action still is a very, very strong thing. We can just let children understand that can be agents of positive change, for example, showing examples on the several things that everyone can do to become an agent of positive change. Even small things altogether, we can be a community, a positive community, making a revolution in this sense. And then there is another thing which is a little bit more complicated to convey, I think, the attitude to the critical thinking, to the deep thinking. It is difficult for children, of course, but letting them understand, even implicitly, that environmental and climate topics are complex but can be understood, and they can have the capacity to exploration, to inquiry, to make questions that are never trivial, those that come from children. I think this is an important message.
There are no dumb questions, especially when it comes from children. Let me just ask you, and maybe if Ferdinando, you want to jump in, but about the emotions, because this is very important. Often adults are taught about climate change, for example, and the emotion that one is often told to feel is simply fear, and that we're supposed to act on fear. And I think any adult knows fear is a terrible motivation. So what emotions work with children? Because fear is also not an emotion you want to express in a children's book. So what emotions? And Ferdinando, you do research on the Bay of Naples, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken, and you have an experiential environment where you see children interact. And I'm curious if you could reflect on these emotions that you see these children have.
The emotional approach has been taken since the very beginning of this kind of enterprises. It aims at stimulating an oh reaction, okay? Wow, and so on. This is marvel and wonder. In the museum I projected, we aim at eliciting an reaction, awareness. Emotion is just the beginning, and we are still at the beginning. If I ask what are the most important animals of the planet, nobody will say copepods. They don't even know what they are. What are the most important plants of the planet? Nobody will say diatoms. They don't even know what they are. So, besides wonder, we have to understand the world if we want to deal with it properly. And I'm not speaking about tiny details. I'm speaking about the most important animals for the functioning of the world ecosystems. The 70% of the planet is covered by the ocean, but the ocean is a volume. It represents more than 90% of the space available to life. And copepods are at the base of the functioning of oceanic ecosystems, and so of the world ecosystems. It's a tragedy that nobody knows that they even exist. So we have to shift from wonder to awareness, because of course you can take care of the things you love, but you cannot take care of the things you don't know. And so we have to know these things. Where does the water coming out from your faucet come from? A guy of the aqueduct of Naples was asking this question in my museums, and he was speaking about the aqueduct of Naples. The water that is coming into your houses in Italy is the water of the Atlantic. Because there is the cycle of water, the water evaporates from the Atlantic, it becomes a perturbation, then it rains, and then there is that. They all study the cycle of water, but it's a series of dots. They don't connect the dots. So when you ask the question, they don't know the answer. When you explain it, it's obvious. So this means that we remained at the level of information, the dots. It didn't become knowledge, linking the dots. So I think that we have to arrive to this state of awareness if we want to change something. Wonder is not enough. It's just the beginning. And we are still at the beginning.
Well, let me ask somebody, this is a general question for the panel, and I'm going to pander a little to the audience because we have a lot of illustrators out there in the audience. And illustrators are faced with this challenge that when they think, if you look at the majority of the illustrations, they're cute, they're attractive, they're adorable, right? And if we want to talk about what is the most important animal on the earth, walking around this book fair, you would think it was a kitten, a puppy, a rabbit, or a bear. Right. So the question is, how does an illustrator deal with this challenge of illustrating things that are essentially somewhat mysterious? For example, some of the smallest microcosms that are involved in or bacteria that will eat plastic in a recycling endeavor. How does an illustrator, how should they approach this subject when trying to work with an author? When the inherent subject is not what they initially would think is attractive or appealing to a child.
I start? Who?
Anybody, yeah.
It's not an easy question, but for me, everything can start through a co-production process between the illustrator and the author, in the sense that they can mutually inspire each other and have mutual feedbacks, and to create the book really together since the beginning. Because, for example, if I am a scientist and also an author, I can just explain things that have been said a few minutes ago about the invisible but important things, for example. So just providing feedbacks in this sense. And I just add one element. For me, the authors and the illustrators have a kind of mission, in a sense, in the society, that of creating diverse and inclusive narratives and visuals, illustrations, to represent the background, the experiences of every children who is going to read that book. So as everyone can find himself, herself well represented in the book. And this is important to me because these help to feel engaged in the problem. So there is this sense of communicate together those that are making the book in order to feel inspired, mutually inspired, and understand things that are not in our specific background, and on the other side, think to the readers and try to be as inclusive as possible.
Yes, if I can
Ines.
just say, in this kind of books is very important teamwork, very, very important, because the authors, they should supervise the work of illustrators, and also they need with the publishers to find a very narrative and beautiful form, no? Not only to communicate information, but to tell stories and to engage with the emotions, with our experience, with concrete examples, no? And so there are difficult books to produce because it's a teamwork of the three parts, I can say: publishing house, the authors and the illustrators, also the scientifics, no? That are there, no? I don't know if...
What do you think?
Now, talking from a publisher's perspective, I think that doing children's books is always about teamwork. It's always about the equal importance of the author and the illustrator. So the illustration has a tremendous responsibility on how they're translating the information to the kids, and also the content that is being given to the kid. So and making, as he said, making this point of awareness is something that every book needs to make sure that it has, or you as a publisher or you as a illustrator, it should be good if you always have this specific point, because you will learn, or actually the kid will learn something from it, not only seeing or making you think that this is cute or beautiful, but you really be learning something from the book. This is quite important.
Ed, so I would like to take it a little further from awareness to action. And even though, yes, the children are small, we've experienced with the SDG Book Club and that we have like a blog, and children would write to us, or their teacher would write to us, or their librarian would write and explain how they did this very small project or larger project, how they went outside and they picked garbage, or they worked in the garden, or it's all about starting really small and taking it further. And in the books and the exhibit, you could see that there's already a large body of books that are really, really good at synthesizing all these ideas that we're just talking about, the idea from the beautiful teamwork between the illustrators and the author, the editorial input, which is so important. Never forget, that the editor is very important, in as much as internet wants to say no, but editors are, rule the books. And at the end, we already see that there is a lot of action being inspired by this.
Well, ultimately, part of that action is going to be not just working on behalf of the environment, but you're creating another generation not only of readers, but of creators. And as the tools become more sophisticated for people to create, ideally they'll have more effective tools to impact the environment we're looking at. From the UN's perspective, I'm just curious, when I mentioned the word responsibility, we're all responsible for this. Not only are illustrations a lingua franca, everybody can understand them, but the Mother Earth is the one thing that we all share that goes beyond nations, goes beyond language. But from the United Nations point of view, there are several large nation states which are responsible for the majority of the pollution on the planet. So what responsibility do the publishers and or the large conglomerate publishers that tend to run, the biggest publishing houses in the world, what responsibility do they have to address this question and to work with this community to foment change?
Well, actually, a lot of large publishers are members of the SDG Publishers Compact, which already has 300 signatories. And to be the SDG Publishers Compact member, you need to adhere to 10 simple principles, which are largely addressed two parts. You would try to make your business as sustainable as possible, so that includes your whole life cycle of book production, and you would publish on the topics of SDGs. So these 10 principles really are not intimidating. They're very accessible. And there's yearly reporting, voluntary reporting by the publishers, and we're getting more and more reporters every year, and we will have results of the 2023 reporting quite shortly available on the SDG Publishers Compact webpage. So if you would like to see, how publishers are engaging in this, you can.
Can individuals participate? For example, if you're an individual illustrator, how can you participate or contribute to this?
Well, I mean, if you work on existing books, you're obviously participating already. You can encourage your publisher to join the Publishers Compact. But also, as an individual, you could do a lot of things on the SDG website. We have something that's called Lazy Person's Guide to Saving Your Planet. 4 levels of things you can do from your couch, home, outside of your home, at work. So please join in.
Ferdinando, because you have this institution that you're able to work directly with children, how can you take the experience of the book and when children, we're talking about action, how do you extend that experience beyond just the pages of the book and turn it into something tangible, maybe beyond the family and within the community at large?
The tragedy is in schools, because these things, at least in Italy, are not part of the school programs. So, as she was saying before, she described what Edward Wilson calls biophilia. All the children are attracted by living things. They go to school and there are only abstractions. There is nothing concrete. And there is the textbooks and so on, they are abstract. The children come back home, they don't know the names of the trees they meet along the way. And there should be a book. And their teachers don't know the names of the books, of the trees they meet on their way. So there should be an upgrade of school programs, because we want to make the ecological transition towards sustainability, but there is no ecology in the courses, and there are no books on these things. If there are, they are very abstract. So the children want to observe, they want to, not anymore anyway, but when I was a child, we were killing everything and collecting it, the butterflies or whatever. The male specimens usually do that. And today, they do not collect anymore. There is no butterfly collect. It's a terrible thing to stab a butterfly. But anyway, you learn the butterflies when you do that, okay? These things are gone. And so they should come back, because these things are there. I made an experiment in citizen science on jellyfish. And we prepared a beautiful poster on jellyfish, asking the people who went to the beach to send reports about the jellyfish. The children were the most active ones, and they knew the names, because there were the Latin names of the jellyfish. They knew the names of the jellyfish. The mothers were writing me saying, my 4 years old child knows the names in Latin of the jellyfish we meet. She was worried. So they are ready to learn these things. They go to school and there are poems to be learned by heart and numbers, theorems, and so on. When I go to the week on science, on the environment, they make them write poems, okay? No, I'm sorry. And then they don't know the trees or the insects. So there is a lot of work to do, and there is a lot of space for new books going in this direction.
Well, maybe instead of killing butterflies, we can look at the food we eat and start with it.
Yes, the food is interesting. If you go in a supermarket, you will realize that nothing comes from natural populations. That is coming from land. Everything is from agriculture, and you go in the fisheries department, the fish department, there are still products that come from wild populations. But they are going towards aquaculture. So we are shifting from hunters and gatherers in the sea, as we did on land 10,000 years ago, right now. So if you observe, even a supermarket will tell you lots of things. So they must learn. So a guide to a supermarket would be a nice book.
Let's talk a little bit. One of the issues we... That's okay. That's okay. One of the issues we have in book publishing is often paper and ink and shipping and transportation, and all of these are heavily impacting our environment. You know, a book is made out of a tree, literally made out of a tree. Inez, talk a little bit about sustainability in publishing and the approach that you've taken to making publishing as the least harmful project we can do.
I think we have a responsibility as publishers, not only to publish about those topics, sustainability topics, but also to produce the books in a more ecological way. So there's, for example, in Catalonia, where I live, it's an eco-publishing institute that helps us to calculate, to reduce, and to communicate the footprint of our books. I think it's very important to gain conscience, For example, we should print locally. This is one of the first important things. It makes no sense to print in the other side of the world because the emissions on transport are so big, So you should use certified papers, FSSC certified papers or recycled papers, Also in the printings, in the print, we should each day they are more conscious about the inks, vegetable-based inks, and not mineral inks. Also about renewable energies, For example, the solvents, not to use chlorine or other toxics, Avoid plastics. For example, in all of our books, we are not plastifying the covers, We are trying to make things more naturally, the appearance of the books. I think we have lots of things to do, not to do. As always, we are plastifying books and printing in China, and we can do the things in a different way, And first of all, to communicate, to be very transparent, to show the people who buy the books, how are we making the books to be coherent with our issues, our topics.
It's interesting because one of the trends in publishing is to move to print. Hello. Okay. We don't know. One of the big issues with printing is that print on demand, small print runs, don't allow the use of recycled papers, and this is a big issue. So you're seeing, okay, but let's see if we get another microphone. Thanks. Okay. Oh. Hi, sorry. One of the issues that I was going to bring up is the trend in publishing is to go towards print on demand and smaller print runs, but typically the type of printers that do print on demand do not take recycled paper. They don't take environmentally friendly inks. They're very tend to be very toxic printing methods. So the smaller the print run, the more toxic it can be in some ways. So you have this kind of paradox within the industry. We have about 10 minutes left. So just to summarize, I'm curious, two things from each of the panelists here. What is a trend that you foresee that needs to be addressed? And what is something that people consistently get wrong when talking about children as readers and children's publishing as, you know, books for action?
So the trends that I see very, very often is kids like having more and more access to books early and early, like for baby books and toddlers. So we think that they don't understand a thing, but in fact they do, and if they have contact in very early stages, it becomes more natural to them. So it's one of the trends that I see. And one thing that I usually see that is misplaced and misunderstood is also the paper that is second used, or the paper that is used more than once. We all think that this is better because it has already been recycled, but the process that it takes sometimes is more toxic than the white paper. So we need to be careful about that as well. So this is something that I think that we need to discuss and to think before just acting into using recycled paper.
Thank you, Karini. And also, it's sometimes more energy involves, a lot more energy being expended on recycling. The trend that I welcome very much is incorporation of the Sustainable Development Goals into the education programs. So I oversee the branding for the Sustainable Development Goals at the United Nations, and I could tell you that quite a number of large publishing houses came to us seeking approval to incorporate it into the education program. In some countries, it's mandated to study the SDGs, such as Portugal, for example. So this is the trend that I very much welcome. And the sort of the misplaced trends, I think that even from this discussion, I disagree that, the young children can't act. I think that we need to create a very warm and engaging environment, and I guarantee you that they will want to act.
Yes, I also agree that they can act, and first they should go out, go to the nature, and it was fantastic that if a book can help young children go to the nature and have this contact, no? Because we have lots of times screen-based education, and we should have more book-based education and a nature-based education, no? So good. I hope that we can help as publishers and all our professions and illustrators. You have a big work to do, no? To communicate the love for nature and to invite people to act. Yes, of course, to plant a garden, to take care of the animals, to know them, to put names. The children are very open to all these things. We just have to keep alive her curiosity, no? Their curiosity, their sense of wonder, and to combine them to act and to change this world, no?
Totally agree with all of you, of course. What I see in my personal experience of a scientist that also goes a lot in the school, talks to kids and their parents also. Sometimes we talk to kids in order to talk with their parents, with the adults, basically. What I see is that the kids are very, very interested in environmental topics, in climate change now. Sometimes they are worried about the future, that's true, but the smallest ones are more engaged in a positive sense than worried about climate change. I see really this intention to be actors, to make something, to ask the collaboration of their adults, the reference adults, and we have to be there for that reason. Cooperate with them and make things together, all together. And I think this is really a hope for the future. See young generations that are so really much informed about climate change things. I see really a very deep understanding of the subject, even in the smallest ones. And that's a hope for me for the future. I analyze lots of terrible data about climate change now, but when I talk to the young persons, really that's a hope for me.
Yes. I'm not very worried about the children because they have an inborn attitude towards these things. I'm worried about what we do to them while they grow up. So we have to cultivate this spontaneous curiosity, which is not only of children. What is the beginning of our culture? Our culture started in caves, depicting animals in caves. So zoology is the first, is the basic science in our cultural development. And it's not strange that children are attracted by animals. Then abstractions come. We have to cultivate this curiosity instead of eradicating it from children, which is what happens when they go to school. I think that there is space to do something not only for the children, but for the children when they grow up. Because their curiosity is destroyed and they go in other directions and they cannot read the environment anymore and they are not curious about it anymore. So this is in the intermediate, keeping the children attitude alive is the most important thing. It's there, so we don't have to create it. It's inner built. We have to keep it alive while they grow. This is the big challenge. And so to know, how many of you know that copepods exist? 5. Okay, 5. And they are the most important animals of the planet, okay? So there is something wrong in the way we address these issues.
Thank you.
Well, I think we can summarize it as learn to read the environment is a nice way to describe it. And if I had any thought here to contribute, it'd be simply that as a father, I can tell you that books are not just for bedtime. You can take your child outside and read to them outside and connect reading in the environment quite literally this way. And I think we'll see some nice changes in the future. I'd like to thank everybody on my panel and on our panel, because this is for us, Carini, Irina, Inez, Elisa, and Ferdinando. And if you'd like to speak to any of them afterwards, I'm sure they'll be happy to chat with you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great time at the book fair.